To the point without a pinch. The right way to guard. What did North American industrial facilities look like in the 1900s? Lots of big equipment running non-stop. There was no safety guarding. Men, women, and their children all worked there. Often someone would get pulled into a machine and get injured or even killed, but the plant had to keep running. In 1907, there were 3,242 fatalities in coal mines. In 1949, about 8,000 workers experienced disabling injuries in the pulp and paper industry. There were just too many injuries and fatalities in workplaces. Was safety even a word back then? Because of public outcry for safer workplaces, regulations were put into place all over North America. These regulations were to prevent any more injuries and fatalities from happening in these workplaces. Machine guards were required to be placed around all rotating equipment that could pull you in and injure you. Today, OSHA, MSHA, and CSA regulations specify that you have to guard all rotating equipment that could pull you in and injure you. You must prevent anyone from reaching into the pinch points. The regulations state that you must guard 36 inches around the hazard to stop people from reaching in. There is an acronym, AUTO, A-U-T-O. You must not be able to reach the hazard from around, under, through, or over the existing guarding. Meaning you must take into consideration the size of the people working around the equipment. Even though the regulation states 36 inches guard distance, all people working around the machine must still be unable to reach the hazard. ANSI B11, which both OSHA and MSHA reference, and CSA Z432 even specify how far away the guard should be from the rotating hazard, according to the guard's opening. This table shows you the maximum opening of the guard and what the minimum distance must be. So for example, if your opening is 1/4 of an inch, then the guard must be 1/2 an inch or more away from the hazard. This safety gauge is a tool that we can provide at no charge. It's supposed to represent your arm and finger, so you have to see it as being round. You poke it through the opening of your existing guard, having it upright through the narrowest space. When it comes to a stop, if the point is touching the pinch point, then that guard is not compliant. It would mean that the opening needs to be made smaller, or the guard needs to be further away from the rotating hazard. So today, we're very lucky that these regulations are in place. It must mean that there are no more injuries and definitely no more deaths from working around rotating equipment. Isn't that right? Don't you agree? How many of you have heard about any more recent injuries or deaths caused by rotating equipment? Well, today, machine guarding is one of the most cited violations in North America. According to OSHA, there are approximately 18,000 injuries and over 800 deaths a year with workers who operate or maintain machinery. As of August this year, MSHA had reported 27 industry fatalities, and amongst those, 11 were related to machinery incidents. The Workplace Safety Insurance Board in Canada stated that in 2012 there were 2,648 machinery injuries, which included 367 amputations. But why? If these regulations are in place, is it the lack of time, the lack of effort, or that people are just being complacent? So how do we make our working areas safe? Start by inspecting your area on a regular basis. Rate any issues and make a checklist. Prioritize it and rate them as A, B, or C. If the area is unguarded, rate it as an A. Guarding is definitely required, so it needs to be addressed immediately, as it presents an imminent danger to workers. If the area requires frequent maintenance or clean-out, and it's difficult to do with the existing guarding, or the existing guarding is not compliant, rate it as a B. This guarding needs to be upgraded, and this also needs to be addressed immediately, as it could pose a danger to workers. If the guard exists but isn't user-friendly or isn't totally compliant, this guarding should be upgraded. Rate this as a C. This should be reviewed with the supervisor, workers, and the Joint Health and Safety Committee to see what improvements should be made, and a time frame should be established. And of course, if no hazard exists, rate it as a D. Make sure that everyone is aware of all the rotating hazards and pinch points in their areas. If there have been any changes to the workspace, how the guards are to be safely removed and when they're to be replaced, and what they should do if a guard is damaged or missing, and who they should notify. This slide shows you an example of the high-risk zones around a conveyor: the tail pulley, skirt boards, idlers, trough rollers on a bend or if there are obstructions, gravity take-ups and counterweights, couplings, V-belts, chains, chain drives, bearings, and any other rotating shafts, and head pulley. Also, tripper conveyors and transfer loadout points need guarding. Here are some tail pulley guarding examples. As you can see, the tail pulley on the left has all of its rotating parts totally exposed, which makes it non-compliant. The tail pulley in the center is totally guarded and compliant. The ones on the right, as you can see, one is compliant and one isn't. The one that is not compliant, although it does have some guarding, you can still reach over it and under it, reaching into the rotating hazard. Therefore, it needs compliant guarding. The guards are designed to prevent any contact with the pinch point between the pulley and the belt, the exposed pulley face, along with the exposed shaft and bearing. The coupling guard on the left has large mesh, which wouldn't be compliant with the ANSI B11 and the CSA 432 standards. There are also spaces at the sides of the guard allowing you to reach into the rotating parts. The coupling guards to the right allow for easy access for inspection through the inspection door. If further work needs to be completed for maintenance, the top can be lifted off by cutting and removing the cable ties, opening the wedge clamps, and removing the guard using the handles. It has adjustable legs and a drain plate under it, preventing someone from being able to reach up and under the guard. It has side fill plates, which once the guard is in place will slide over to cover any exposed rotating equipment. Here are some V-belt guard examples. The first photo is totally exposed with no guarding. A worker could easily be hurt working around this exposed piece of equipment. This one has danger written all over it. The second photo shows you a properly guarded V-belt drive. This follows the AUTO acronym. It also has black mesh. Black mesh is easier to see through than yellow. Therefore, if you have a piece of equipment that perhaps requires frequent visual inspection, why not consider the black mesh option? And the compliant V-belt guard on the right shows you how it's designed in sections, and handles were also provided for this application. The back of the guard is also in sections, making each piece lighter to carry and making it much easier to be able to remove and replace for maintenance. As you can see here on the left is an unguarded counterweight. The photo on the right shows you a fully compliant guarded counterweight. This shows a barrier guard surrounding it. For the counterweight on the left, you could add doors in the barrier guard if you needed to get equipment in to do clean out. Also keep in mind that if you have two counterweights next to one another, it's always best to guard them separately. If you put one barrier guard around both, then you would have to shut down both counterweights each time you want to remove a guard to access that area. If they are guarded separately, you would only have to shut down the counterweight that you are maintaining or accessing at that time. Return idlers need to be protected from contact or from falling onto someone or something. Idler guards are for the idlers that are within reach, to prevent anyone from reaching into the pinch point. They can easily be opened for clean out using the smart wedge clamps. Idler baskets are for the return idlers that are not within reach, but their purpose is to catch the idler if it were to fall onto someone or something. These are attached with chains and beam clamps. There are other options for guarding return idlers, depending on your application. For instance, you might want to use a flat guard if the idler is along a walkway. This is often mounted to a guard mounting rail and allows for field fitting cutouts around obstructions. Or perhaps you want to use a belly guard. This is a flat guard with larger square mesh, and it can be hung with chains under the conveyor frame. The photo on the left shows an unprotected flange bearing. Although this shaft may rotate at a slow rate, if a worker to get entangled, there would be no stopping it. The photo on the right shows a properly guarded flange bearing. It's designed in such a way as to allow the greasing of the bearing without the removal of the guard. Consider which fasteners you're using. Bolts are commonly used as fastening systems, but they can rust and often need replacing. Wearing gloves can make it difficult to manipulate them, and they can be dropped and lost. A more user-friendly alternative is the smart wedge clamp. The smart wedge clamps are bolted to the leg or the guarding frame and never have to be removed, so your guard always has a place to go back onto. The wedge slides out and the guarding slides off and on with ease. The wedge clamp stays in place. A cable tie is to be placed through the center of the wedge and around the end to lock it into place, and will require a tool, side cutters, to remove it, making it compliant to the OSHA and CSA regulations requiring a tool to remove. After replacing a guard, you must remember to replace the cable tie to keep it compliant. A locking wedge clamp is also available. It uses a set screw system and is designed for applications where using a cable tie is not desirable. It uses an Allen key to quickly lock or unlock the set screw. OSHA states that if possible, the machine design should permit routine lubrication and adjustment without the removal of safeguards. So make sure your guards are maintenance friendly. Try to design the guard so it's not only easy to remove and replace, but perhaps design it so that it doesn't need to be removed each time. For example, black mesh for visual inspection rather than removing the guard. Or include an inspection door for quick access. This will also save time, which ultimately saves money. In this first photo, you can see where someone's cut a hole into the compliant guarding to gain access, now making it non-compliant. I'm sure nobody's seen anything like this before. The other photos show how adding the inspection door can make it compliant again, yet still allowing quick access. Inspection doors are necessary when you want to be able to inspect or access certain areas without having to remove a complete guard. Remembering you still do have to shut down the equipment prior to accessing. The unique two-piece design allows for retrofitting existing compliant guarding or installing it in new. It's easily installed by removing the section of guarding and bolting the two pieces together, sandwiching the mesh between. All of this is kept secure and safe using the smart wedge clamp. Don't forget, replacing the cable tie on the wedge clamp ensures that you can't access the equipment without a tool to remove. As you can see in the bottom right photo, there are also inspection door extensions available that can be customized to suit your application. A well-designed guard should not weigh more than 50 pounds. It should not require more than one person to remove or install it. It's a good idea to put weight labels on your heavier guards. It allows workers to know if lifting the guard is within their capability, ultimately reducing the possibility of injuries. Consider using these ergonomic accessories. Guarding can be easily removed using the rubber-coated handles. They are bolted onto the mesh and positioned to suit the application. They make the removing and replacing of guards easier and ergonomic, especially if the guarding supplied is no more than 50 pounds. Guard seats are used to make it easier to install and replace the guards. The lower portion of the guard sits in the guard seat. Then the guard is flipped up and attached at the top, reducing the amount of smart wedge clamps and tie wraps required. Having guard hangers installed makes it easier to store the guards up and out of the way so they don't create a tripping hazard and they don't get damaged. Their unique design and rubber coating allows them to neatly hook over existing guarding or onto handrails without slipping. Make sure that the design, material, and construction of the guard does not create a hazard. Make sure that it's free of burrs, sharp edges, and pinch points. Using ergonomic and user-friendly guarding will reduce the number of possible injuries, which will reduce the direct and indirect costs caused by an injury. It will mean faster maintenance and cleanup process, which cuts down on the time and the number of personnel required, which can be a large cost savings. And guards will more likely be replaced, ensuring compliance and workers' safety, ultimately reducing the cost of citations or injuries from not having a guard in place. These benefits will increase the guarding's return on investment, which makes up for the cost of using ergonomic, user-friendly custom guarding. The person who gets hurt or killed is not the only one who's affected by an accident. A workplace injury causes a ripple effect. Family and friends take on extra responsibilities. Colleagues have increased workloads. Witnesses may develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Many workers who sustain or witness both minor and major injuries within weeks or months can suffer from episodes of depression. Employers will need to deal with rehiring, retraining, costly fines, citations, and workers' compensation, and insurance premiums are likely to rise. In summary, many years ago, workers cried out for safer working conditions, and in response, various regulations were put into place. Many types of ergonomic and user-friendly guarding options are now available, and safety checklists can be put into place. Still, machine guarding is one of the most cited violations. Non-compliant guarding or unguarded rotating equipment still causes too many injuries and deaths. When it comes to guarding your rotating equipment, you want to ensure you're getting the highest quality possible. Sometimes the best quality products are not necessarily the lowest cost. But you can't compromise on your or your co-workers' safety. So making sure that your guarding delivers a maximum return on investment is crucial. By using ergonomic and maintenance-friendly safety guarding, you can implement a safety strategy that will benefit your company and employees and will increase your return on investment. Don't become an injury statistic. This is a quote from Napoleon Bonaparte, and you can interpret it as you want. There is no such thing as an accident, only a failure to recognize the hand of fate. Thank you for your time, and I hope you found this presentation informative. Please provide me with your feedback, and feel free to email me at chris.allen@conveyorguarding.com if you have any questions.